This is Kaylan, better known as Professor Psy Goodness and Angels. We pray that everyone has healthy eating, appropriate speech, appropriate behavior, appropriate clothing, appropriate spacing, and knowing the science and anatomy of all things. Also remembering to have the goals of the body, the household, and the outside responsibilities. I am the founder of the Psy Goodness Industries, and I live non-sinfully and independently. Today we are speaking about how to deal with a traumatized child and how to handle. We will put that in better words. We will speak today about how to handle traumatized children and also about children's homes, academies, and other places. Patience is a virtue. In life, you will realize that there's two things. There's good and there's bad. Something bad is something harmful in any way, shape, or form. Something bad is something inappropriate in any way, shape, or form. A normal child, in normal today's society, I am considered a trauma child from when I was little. I am an adult now. And so, as an adult, we will speak about this important manner of how to handle a traumatized child, for I was one of them. My life documentary is on the YouTube channel. To understand a traumatized child, you have to first understand what a normal life is like, because that is something that they do witness. They will witness a normal life, whether if they're around other children or in schools or whatsoever else. They're going to end up learning that their life was not normal, and then they're going to feel like they were outcasts. We'll give an example. So a normal child usually is raised with two parents. The parent of what is supposed to be the father figure, and the father figure is supposed to teach them about strictness. The father figure is supposed to teach them about things like independence, of doing things like building your own shelter, or building things, making things, creating things, even woodworking, or even engineering on certain parts of the car, if the car breaks down, or even electrical wiring and things like that. That is what a typical father is supposed to be. The provider, the one that teaches you about engineering and about how to be independent. The supposed to be mother figure is supposed to be the nurturer, the carer, the one that will nurture you, the one that will care for you. And this is a definition for these words. The mother figure is supposed to support you, to guide you. So if you did not have those things, you possibly lack the understanding of a normal average life. I relate to that. Sometimes when a child or an adult or anyone is traumatized in a way, they always try to find something to relate to. understanding things in life, you have to realize that when a child or even adult witnesses and sees that other people have had a great glorious life, and then suddenly see yourself and say, why did it have to be me? Why did this have to happen to anybody in general? It did not have to. When it comes to influence, there's two things in life, in this world. There's good influence and there's bad influence. Why does bad influence at times in some children seem to be more of something that they go towards? And this is a very good point. So when it comes to the understanding of influence, a lot of times you may wonder, where did this come from? It may not be even anything that they necessarily went through, just something they found somewhere or even create on their own. Never ever think that it's for no reason. There's always more of a reason. When there's a traumatized child, you got to be like the inspector. You have to be the investigator on the case as a parent, or if you had adopted a child or anything else. The influence is usually caused from something that they experienced before. So what you have to do is help them understand a foundational purpose that can transition them over. Now, if you have a traumatized child confused about what they're here for, they're going to live years of their life in the trauma, and a lot of the times they will do the same thing that they were introduced to, and until they figure out it's wrong. But a lot of people, even I have witnessed people at the age of 50, when I was little, and here there was wearing high heels, short dresses. This is not recent. This is when I was a child, okay, on the other side of the United States. And I would witness these females, and they would do very bad things. And you would just question, that person is 50 years old looking like that. What's in, and going to the guy, and it was just terrible. And it was a question, why in the world? Now, as a child, I never wanted to do what they did. I hated what they did, indeed. But the thing is, when it comes to what people introduce, sometimes the child will not be interested in what influencers try to influence. No, but they may be influenced into something else, because they end up picking something at some point. If you're not going to put something in their life that is better, then they're going to feel sort of cornered to pick something, because children want to feel like they are here for something. They are here for a reason. If you just have them like, oh, you can do whatever, they're going to be like, well, I don't like that. Some children do not want to just be here for whatever. And then they'll figure it out later on. They do not want that. We will give an example of good parents that dedicate their children to a foundational purpose. The Olympians. A lot of people in the Olympics, you think that they just randomly went to the Olympics. No, a lot of them started at the age of 5. That's right. Their parents started them in training at 5 years old. And then they end up getting a gold medal, and you think, oh, they possibly went into that when they started in college or something like that. No. A lot of them started when they were 5 years old. That means the parent. Now, you see that from the child's perspective that grows up into that. But see, as a parent's perspective, how did the parent treat the child? The parent led them to what? To do the Olympics. They had invested into the child's classes, and they had paid for all of the classes that the child needed. But the parent was not like, hey, you can do this, you can do that, you can do everything that you want as long as you put your mind to it, that would confuse the child. And so dedicating them to a purpose, only one purpose, so they can focus onto that, so they can get better in that. Having other children focusing on that. The thing about the Olympics is there's other children that focus in the same kind of class. But a traumatized child has other people and classes, and sometimes the traumatized children introduce the other children to what they were introduced to, which creates a chain reaction of a big mess. So what you have to do is you have to pick a foundational purpose for the child that they can dedicate your life to. You say, oh, what if they do not like it? Do it anyway. And then if you feel like, you dedicate them to a purpose, have that in their mind for as long as it'll last. Then if they say, I want to transition to something else, something that they like more, you can have a lecture with them to say, look, in life there's a lot of options, but if you do not pick a straight path, you could get lost out there. And you could get hurt. And explaining that parent talk with them, then they would understand if you teach that correctly. Raising them to be a scientist is helping them have the scientist perspective. So that means that as a parent, you have to gain that perspective if you want to teach the child to have that perspective. When we feel like some children can sit there at a desk for hours at a school and fill in bubbles on a paper. But some traumatized, I think the majority of traumatized children do not want to sit down and fill out some bubbles on a paper. Me personally, can I remember any paper I've ever filled out in school when I was little? I did not have educational opportunities after the 6th grade, but I do not remember a single paper I ever filled out. There was a science book that had a picture of a chloroplast cell. That's all I remember. But I'm pretty sure that actually came from a recent Google photo. But can I remember any science experiment that I ever did when I was little? Yes. In the academies, we did this egg experiment. It was like a catapult. And that was it. But you see, when it comes to physical lessons and paperwork lessons, the child is less than likely going to learn in a better manner with the filling in the paper. So turning education into more of an activity is what the child needs. Now that's exactly why we have the strategy of the sing-along songs to make education fun, and the free printout pages of the human anatomy and the brain anatomy. Now another thing about traumatized children is sometimes the root. You have to really find what is the source of the problem. If you do not get to the source of the problem, now when you ask them what's wrong, what is the matter, they're not going to recover from the trauma. You're just reminding them of the trauma over and over and over again. It's not going to recover them. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to recover them. Now you could talk about it for a little bit, but if you overdo it, it's going to end up making it worse. So really getting to the source of the problem, providing compensation is a major thing. So allowing justice to prevail. Yes. Sort of babying them, but not too much. Like babying them with strictness sometimes. Traumatized children need more attention. And do not give them too much attention, but do things with them. Attention is not just giving them everything they want. Attention is when, say that I had a canvas, and then, or say that there was a traumatized child and I wanted to give the child attention, and I was the adopted parent. Now, I'm not going to adopt. I'm not in any situation to adopt, but I'm saying if I adopted a traumatized child and I wanted to give the child attention that the child needed, sometimes it's not, oh, what happened to you was so terrible, and that's not necessarily what is going to give them that attention. What kind of attention does a traumatized child need? They need someone to experience things with them. In an example, say that I had a canvas I wanted to paint, and so I wanted the child to paint with me. Understand, that's their attention. That gives them attention. Like, hey, let's draw this drawing together. And so we would say, okay, first we're going to start with drawing a circle, and then we'll say, oh my, I cannot even draw a perfect circle. If only I could. Let's see if you can draw a perfect circle. And then here the child tries to draw that. If they say that they do not want to do the painting, then you can try to talk them into it and say, this is a really good coping skill. And hey, plus, look at life like this. Once this time is gone, we cannot get it back. Would you not want to spend this time enjoying this? Make sure that they respond. Yes, you would rather. And then tell them, if they cannot imagine it in their head, say, imagine in your head what it would be like if you just sat here and just wasted your time, or if you sat here, painted, and made beautiful experience. Do you see the difference between the image? And sometimes you may have to have an actual image to draw, like draw an illustration of the before of what it would be like if they just sat and just wasted their time, or what it could be like if they chose to express their talents. Showing them the image of the before and after can actually help them learn their potential as well. So another thing is showing them before and after, like a poverty person, that draw like a poverty person that's in poverty and on the side of the road or something like that. And then show someone that's successful in a business and show the image to the child and say, what do you want to be in life? Tell them that their decisions is what creates their success. And helping the child with giving them the attention that they need and having the lectures, that's called parenting lectures. And traumatized children definitely need parenting lectures. But while you're doing something as well, and having a gesture that they can remember. I'll give you an example. One time in the academies, they did not teach the anatomy, but they did this. They said, sometimes in our emotion, we just feel like we want to flip our lid. And they did an expression just like this. They moved their fingers upwards. And they said, this is like the cortex of your brain. And this is actually the prefrontal cortex. And they did not really teach the brain, but they were just saying the prefrontal cortex. And they said, sometimes when your emotions go off, you just want to flip your lid. So I feel like that was not necessarily the lesson of self-awareness and anatomy as the children needed, but it was more of promoting expression. And I did not really like that kind of lesson when I was little. As a traumatized child, I wanted to be more self-aware, but I did not tell people. I did not tell people that I wanted to be self-aware, but I really did. And there was not a lot of things I was interested in because it was books and tiny little words, and I did not want to shove my face in the tiny little words because it was difficult for me as a traumatized child to actually sit there and feel satisfied. Now, there was sometimes to where I did. I think that I may have read a book. Uh, I did not have a lot of books available, actually. Now, I think I read the Bible when I was, they may have had a Bible and I flipped through it, but I did not really read it like that because I had memory loss as a child. Some, and actually this is a common thing for traumatized children, especially if a child had head trauma, they will not admit it and they will seem like they do not have memory loss, but more than 60% of trauma children have memory loss. And the way that you can test this is if you get a child to read an entire page of a book and then ask them if they can repeat it back. If they cannot repeat it back, it means that they have memory loss. And this means that they need to be constantly reminded of things sometimes. It may not seem like that, but they do. But the one thing is helping them become self-aware, helping them know about decisions, tell them never to choose anything harmful, and give physical examples. You have to bring the physical life alive when you do these things. Like in an example, you have a fruit right here and then you put junk food right here in this hand. I do not have that. I'm not going to ever get junk food. But say that there was junk food in this hand and then there was good fruit in this hand. You'd ask the child, say that you went to the store, give like fake money to the child or something and say, okay, I'll be like the store. Be creative. Say, I'll be like the store. So what would you rather buy? The healthy fruits and vegetables or the nasty junk food? And make an expression, express yourself, because children love to move around. They have all the energy. And I know as adults, it's difficult to have that energy sometimes. But with a child, if you want to be a parent, you have to put a lot of energy forth. Put some expression in there. What would you choose? If they choose the junk food, you say, okay, that's going to be more money than what they have. And then you say, why did you say more money than what you have if the melon was a lower price? Said, well, the reason why is because this junk food's going to waste your life just like it would waste your money. You tell them like that. Very good. And so that's why you get them. And you see, when you have physical life examples, that helps the child to learn faster, especially traumatized children. Some traumatized children will not just sit there. Now, some will. Some will, shockingly, because they're open-minded. But some are not patient. So teaching them patience is another thing. It's helping them to learn how to cope with sitting down, meditating their mind, becoming self-aware. A lot of children have difficulties meditating their mind until they are self-aware. And so teaching them how to be self-aware is teaching them their anatomy. What is their digestive system? What is the pancreas for? The pancreas creates enzymic juice, and that enzyme can help the cells absorb nutrients. So teaching anatomy is something that my angels and I have found very helpful to a lot of people. And in fact, we have international language now on our YouTube channel and have taught this in Chinese, Japanese, currently in the process of some of the languages. It's Chinese, Vietnamese, Filipino, an Indian language called Malayan, and a few other languages that we will be having onto there as well. And having these languages allows children all over the world to look at sing-along songs or some kind of anatomy that they can study to become aware. It's not inappropriate to teach a child the anatomy because you're teaching from your brain. You're saying there's millions of neurons that go through your brain. Millions. Do you even know how to count to that number? And then show them the decimal place. We have the tens, hundreds. We have the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. Then billions, then tens billions, 100 billions, etc. So actually showing them physical life examples would definitely help them a lot. And I know that a traumatized child would take a lot of energy and effort, but if you put that forth, you could be saving their life. And a lot of the staff members in certain places, they did not understand their role as that parent. Now, there was some of the staff members there that did have a lot of understanding towards it. Now, children that have aggressive issues, now teaching self-control is the main thing. A lot of the children that had anger issues in the academies, they just shoved them in a room. And even they shoved me in a room for so long that it was considered abuse, and they reported them for abuse because it was not legal for them to do that. Because it was an empty room, there was no furniture, nothing, and it was considered illegal for them to do that. But there was also, when a child became aggressive, they ended up getting tackled, and it was like they did not teach about having self-control, but rather than to sort of promote it more, because when the child gets bored, they'll go back to what they did before unless you teach against it. And you have to teach against it, and not only teaching against it, but providing something that they can do when they're bored or in their free time. And something that they could have on them all of the time. But one thing is not allowing messages. Oh my goodness. Children that are traumatized, do not let them message people on the media. Seriously, especially when it comes to certain things. I think that you can, as long as you monitor conversations. As a parent, you have to monitor. And if you have to go on their page, block certain people whatsoever, then that's what you have to do. As a parent, you're supposed to be the parent. Because sometimes it's the influences that will really get them into things that they should not. I'll give you an example. I actually got into major hip hop things when I was introduced to this girl in the children's home. And she was putting gang signs up. And I did not really understand it like that. And her and I spoke more than any other girl that was in the children's home. And that means that no other girl had bond with me like that besides Marquita. Marquita also had a bond with me, and she was good. She did cosmetology and hair, which is something that I ended up doing also. I would cornrow people's hair, but it was not really something that was difficult for me. I learned very quickly on it. And that's something that you could really do regularly, and you have to have people with that kind of hair anyway. So then there was another girl that was, she was the only one that I really spoke to. The other children I did not really speak to like that. So we ended up getting very bonded to this girl, and well, she influenced certain types of dressing, wearing baggy pants, and the sort of gang thing or the hip hop, and that's really where the influence started. See, sometimes children get influenced by other children, but then that child was influenced by another person. Do you see how it works? It's a chain reaction. So really getting to the source of the issue is major. And also getting to the source, taking that root up, but making sure that you prevent it from happening again. Correct? And when it comes to traumatized children, you can find a way to transition them from what they're doing to something better. But as we said, children that are traumatized, and even children in general, need a lot of attention. And that means, just as we said, if you want to give the child attention, get like a canvas, do painting together. If you want to do art, you could do engineering also, or even science experiments. The more you do with the child, like science experiments and all kinds of art things, is the more bonded that the child will get to you. And you have to really say things that can really like spark in their mind, and they will just remember for the rest of their life.
right? You want to say those empowering words right when they need it. And especially teaching them about appropriate spacing, staying arm's length of a distance. Actually, the academies taught me that when I was little. They would say, stay arm's length of a distance. And so I remembered that when I was a child. And I kept that in my mind throughout childhood. Also, they actually had taught sign language when we were in the academies, but it was actually not the staff members. It was one of the children that was there, one of a child that was there. And she learned sign language. We was on lockdown. And so while we was on lockdown, she ended up teaching us the sign language so we could secretly talk to each other. So finding ways of creativity is very important. Finding like certain projects that you can do, like fixing certain things, or even like this. Say that suddenly you was using a fan in the house, and you can actually sort of do some of these things on purpose, or even like make it seem like something broke but it did not, and you're like, oh my goodness, this broke. And then you ask the child, what are we going to do? And then the child could respond, I don't know what to do. But then you say, I know what to do, we have to take this apart. And then they're like, take it apart? Says, yes, do you know where a screwdriver is? And then gets the child to get the screwdriver and says, can you unscrew all of these screws here? We'll take this apart. And see if the child is interested in engineering things, because helping them realize what they are interested in can help you as a parent know what they should do in career. But say that you wanted a child to be a scientist. All of their clothing should look like a scientist. All of what you buy them, presents for Christmas, for their birthdays, should be science. Say that you wanted to have them to be an engineer. Then every holiday, Christmas, birthdays, etc., should be engineering things. Say that there was a grandma that they had, or a cousin that they had, make sure to inform them. If you ever get a gift for my child, you need to make sure that you're sticking to their purpose, and I want them to be, and then say what you want them to be. And so that way they will be intrigued into their purpose. Very good. And teach them about importance of foundations, and say, a lot of people live in this world without knowing their purpose, and they get lost. And they feel like their life does not matter, and that they were just here without a purpose. And explain to the child, that's why I wanted to give a purpose to you, because I did not want you to get lost. Right? And when you teach the child that, you're helping them to fulfill their self. You're helping them to fulfill who they will impact. Saying those empowering words right when it is needed could change so many lives. Literally. Make sure to always wash the fruits before eating. Yes, indeed. Very good. Excellent. So the importance of knowing how to handle a traumatized child is very important. If there is a will, there is a way. Now, children that have been introduced to violence, you can always transition them, put them in classes for mixed martial arts, and take them to tournaments. Actually, some children do judo. An example of Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey started judo when she was 5 years old. She went into MMA, and she actually won a belt when she was in her 20s or 30s. But the thing is, she succeeded into that because her mom started her when she was 5 years old into that. And I was actually influenced by Ronda Rousey on self-defense, because I watched what she did with every movement as a child, and I knew how to defend myself from a lot of what she did and the way that she moved while she was doing judo. But I never had the opportunity of classes like that.
But I'm telling you, with the anger I had, it would have really helped me. So if a child has anger issues, teach them about self-control and say, you need to convert your anger to something that is productive. If you want to express your anger, start cleaning. Start cleaning with strength. Rearrange the furniture in the house and clean the house. And then they are utilizing their strength and their intelligence to rearrange, and that can sometimes be. But always remember to teach that there is a time and a place for everything in life. And this was a session about how to deal with a traumatized child. If you all need more lessons on this, you can say in the comments below that you would like to hear more of this. But we pray that all the children will learn to become their own parents also. We pray that the parents and the world will see their self as parents. Even though there may be a child that you did not adopt or you do not have as blood or siblings or anything like that, we all are parents to the children of the world. If you do not accept this, then you need to learn to, because we are supposed to be the parent species of this entire planet. And as we said, we can have two sides of ourself, of motherly and fatherly. If you are a single parent and you're doing things alone, you can have both aspects of the motherly and fatherly aspects. If you have adopted a child and you're doing it alone, you can have the motherly and fatherly aspects. But remember the definition of mother and father. You have to gain those traits, gain the perspective, gain the understanding, and study and remember these lessons that my angels and I have taught to you all. Because we all should have the motherly and fatherly side of ourselves. Very good. Stay healthy and invest wisely. And remember that our life matters and we can make a very big difference. There's all kinds of things that you can help the child dedicate their self to. Farming is an incredible purpose. Doing farming. Also inventing. We need more inventors in the world. Manufacturing, you could teach them about science. Learning science and getting into the field of discovery, even. Some certain fields of certain scientists, like the ones who discover the fossils, or the ones that create different things in chemistry to figure out how to make certain adhesives. Like if we need an adhesive, and we need a scientist to create an adhesive, so the scientist would be in the lab trying to create this adhesive. Or say that you wanted a child to be in the military. I think that is very dangerous, knowing what you'd be risking. But get them into transition to what they want to do. If you want them in engineering, you have to then, as a parent, study what kinds of engineering is out there. Whether if it's aerospace engineering, of engineering spacecrafts for the military, or whether if that is engineering on the level of certain cars, like electric cars, or even trying to create new types of engineering, or even there is some engineering that is based on construction of engineering, and construction is also a good purpose. There's tons of purposes that you could give to the children and the adults of the world. But just know that there is so much out there that we could be doing. Think about what it is and think about what it could be.
and just see that image in your head. Whether if you want to be a constructor, see the image of you with a construction hat doing some construction. Or whether if you wanted to be a scientist, imagine you in a lab coat looking at the microscope. And when you want to be something in life, and when you want a child to be something in life, you need to get the clothing for it. Make them feel like they're going to be that. And an example, there was one set of parents that was actually on the news because of how amazing that they treated their child. And what they did was, instead of buying them gifts that were, irrelevant to what they wanted to do, they figured out what their child liked. And so he was just about 6 years old. And the children got him a UPS outfit. And he wanted to deliver presents to people. So the UPS drivers, the parents tried to get a hold of one of the UPS drivers to let their child experience what it's like to be a UPS driver. And the boy told them, said, "This is like delivering presents like the everyday Santa Claus." And so it was really amazing for the child to experience the UPS experience. And so the child will grow up to do just that. And they even bought like a little car, like one of those little tiny ones that was in the shape of the UPS, and bought that like custom made and everything. And so when you buy the child clothing, you want to buy their clothing to what you want them to do. If you want them to be a scientist, then buy them clothing that's in the sense of like a scientist. If you want them to be a constructor, try to give them those constructor clothing. And then take lots of photos. When you do the experiments, like whether if it's a science experiment or whether if it is bonding and doing art, like we said, the canvas, make sure to take photos of those events and keep that photo forever. Keep that on your Google Gmail, or put that on your Facebook publicly, so that if you lose your Facebook, you'll have that public photo. And make sure that you can keep that permanently, so that whenever that little one grows up, you'll have the photo for them and say, "Look how you've grown." Personally, I believe that everyone should keep their spacing. And I believe that the world has become very populated. It is 7.8 billion. Okay, that's a big number with a B. And this, just a small, tiny little continent, or not, just a small little country, okay, tiny little country, not even the entire land piece, but just a small, tiny little country is in $1 trillion debt, and just has a few million people. And you wonder why the debt's that high. Because there's how many people. And then there is other countries facing debt ceilings. You have to understand management, waste management, and other things like that. If you all are out there listening to this and you just sort of watch this because you wanted to know about how to really take care of children and whatsoever else, well, we want to tell you this. When it comes to the understanding of adoption, we would rather people adopt by this point rather than giving birth, because there is already an overpopulation crisis, and there is children out there that need parents. And so if you're watching this episode and you was possibly thinking about adoption, or you already have, congratulations if you are a parent who had adopted a child. We encourage adoption. We do not want people to repopulate. If you are thinking about having a child, you can go for adoption. Now, we just told you all some tips on how to take care of traumatized children. and also teaching them better ways to think, helping them through speech therapy. Not therapy as in they're talking about their problems. I think that's one major issue is they help them dwell on their problems, right? They're not helping them overcome their obstacle. They're helping them just dwell in their obstacle instead, and that's not good. And so what you want to do is help them with speech therapy, tell them to sit up straight, have them on a healthy diet. I am on a vegan, gluten-free, and low-sugar diet, and it has to be very strict on the diet, and you all should be very strict on the diet too, because remember, neurological science is a real thing. A lot of children will cry, scream, throw a fit because their tummy's hurting. That's the source, but they don't really feel it. They just know that's going up to their brain. And scientifically, scientists have proven that more than 80% of behavioral problems in children is caused by what their body is going through. Very good. And a lot of the times the child will not cry and whine about what they're going through, but they will cry and whine about everything else. And so as a parent, it may confuse you. We have a purpose, and we are to fulfill that purpose. We have a purpose in farming and venting. We have a purpose in being a scientist, purpose in the balance and purification of existence, putting proper order to life for the future. Putting proper order to everything is the best thing that we could do. And a part of putting proper order to things is making sure is structure that does not allow anything bad. And you have to teach the child how to cast those bad things out. If they're having a thought, teach them to express the way that they are thinking. And if there's any bad thoughts that ever go through their mind, teach them to cast that out their self, meaning tell their self that they will not allow bad things going through their mind, and they will only allow their self to think in a good way, and then transition into that. Now, you could also, here's another way to help children and adults, is helping them earn things. Like, say that you had them with allowance, and tell them, like, you keep their allowance in a sense, or you have like your little cashier, or like have like one of those little toy cashiers or something, and then give them fake money, and then tell them, and have like a little gift basket. Now, they did this at the academies, or one of the places that was similar to that, and they did like this gift basket, and you would obtain like points. And then once you get those points, if you get enough points, you get to have something from the box. No matter what age they are, they can do. You could actually put like even things that are more major, like an engineering box, like one of those discovery boxes from Walmart. They actually have a bunch of those, if you all was unaware. They have those at the Super Center, and they're like boxes that have science in there, even ceramic making in there. They're called discovery boxes, and you could usually get those, the discovery boxes, in the arts and crafts, and we do recommend that. Very good. Also, having someone that the child can look up to. It's good to be the parent that the child can look up to, but also showing them like one of the successors, and say, and tell the child, make sure to say it. Say, that could be you. And then ask the child, would you see yourself like that? All successful like that? And then you have to tell the child, well, go ahead and ask. Get the child to learn to ask questions. Asking questions is forms of high level of intelligence. You'd say, how did you get successful like that, is what you have to ask people. And remember, never choose anything harmful. Form. And sometimes in life there are other reasons for things. And so you really want to get to the source of what is going on, but you also want to see if there's any other reasons or any other thing that's happening around them, some kind of reason why they may not have wanted to be in a certain place. Or even like this, when you do the points thing, you can reward them with decorations for their room. Now that sounds comforting, because when you earn things, then they are understanding a life lesson of earning. Here again. We pray that this lesson has helped you all, and we pray for all the children of the world. But remember, to all of the people who are parents of children's homes, academies, etc., that you are trying to help them transition to a permanent career, is what you are trying to do. Stay healthy and invest wisely. Invest into making the future better with the advice that my angels and I give you all. Stay healthy and invest wisely.